Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
Hello and welcome to Travel Market Life. In this episode, we're looking at how regional and independent hotels are lagging behind. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. In a recent survey of 186 UK hoteliers commissioned by Ideas RMS and the UK's leading hospitality publication, The Caterer, found that hotels are working harder and not smarter, uncovering missed revenue opportunities for regional hotels and overdue cultural changes for more profitable integrated revenue strategies. Key findings include regional hotels are falling behind city centre properties in how they measure success, with an emphasis on occupancy, with well over 28% in rural, coastal and beach hotels using this as a key metric, highlighting the priority of heads in beds, a strategy which increases both operational and marketing costs. While city hotels remain focused on maximising revenue per room, with 45.5% using RevPAR as their dominant performance metric. There is also a gulf in the use of technology to enable commercial success, with less than half, 45.3%, of regional hotels using a revenue management system, compared to over 3/4, 77.2%, of city hotels. Furthermore, properties using an RMS were reported to achieve a 14.15% ADR increase last year, compared to just 11.69% ADR increase for those without a revenue management system. In this episode, we will explore the findings and get feedback from two hoteliers as we look at why independent hotels need to rethink revenue management and strategy models, bringing a commercially focused culture, and maximising pricing strategies. To discuss these insights, we are joined by Michael McCartan, VP EMEA of Ideas, Geza Boksak, the Head of Revenue at Harbour Hotels, and Inna Nakrasova, the Head of Revenue at the Lanesborough.
Travel Market Life.
First on the line joining me is Michael McCartan, the VP of EMEA at Ideas. Michael, welcome and congratulations on recently joining Ideas RMS. It's great to have you back here on Travel Market Life.
Thank you, Ryan. It's great to be back and great to be representing Ideas.
Now, you've recently sponsored this survey with the Caterer, and there are some really interesting key findings that we just looked at in the intro. But what really stood out when we interviewed and surveyed both global independent brands?
Yes, there were lots and lots of interesting insights, but for me, the most interesting of the bunch, there were essentially four. The first one was that just over half the respondents indicated that they had a dedicated revenue management function. And this provided confirmation, to me at least, that employees of many independent hotels wear multiple hats and are very busy people. The other interesting insight is that half the respondents identified that a good revenue strategy is the most important factor in improving revenue performance. But this said, about 60% said that they're falling behind in reacting to opportunities in a timely manner, and that was their biggest challenge. And then lastly, 38% of the respondents said that they provided revenue management training for their staff. So a large number of people that are actually performing the revenue management function don't have any formal training in the discipline, which is very interesting.
Absolutely fascinating, particularly in a day of age when, distribution landscape is so complicated and there's so much change in demand in the market and changing consumer behaviors that, pricing is absolutely essential for being successful and profitable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's broad recognition within the biggest in the brand sector, at least, that revenue management or commercial management is a key function. And it seems that whilst the discipline is recognized by a large portion of the independent hotels, there's still some way to go to really establishing as a core component of a hotel operation within the independent sector.
Well, the great thing is, Michael, we've got a couple of hoteliers with us on the line now who's actually going to help us sift through this data and give us their perspectives on how they're seeing changes in revenue management function. Firstly, I'd like to introduce them both. Both of them, fantastically, have previously worked at large global hotel chains and now in the independent sector, so that we can actually see the differences of working in those two different categories of hotels. So firstly, Geza Boxak, the head of revenue at Harbour Hotels, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Nice to be here.
And also Ina Nakrasova, the head of revenue at the Lanesborough in London.
Great to be here, Ryan. Thank you.
Now, Ina, come to you first, because I know that you worked at the Four Seasons previously, and so you've worked at these mega global hotel chains. What do you see as a difference in revenue management strategies and the opportunities for independence?
Thank you for the question. So in general, the cornerstones of revenue management are the same. So what you're looking at, this is the beauty of revenue management, is that it can be applied to different accommodation types, starting from a budget hotel to student accommodation to all the way through ultra luxury hotels. Again, the beauty of revenue management is that you don't need to occupy a niche to be successful in revenue management, because the cornerstones, the logic there is the same. However, there are some fundamental differences between sometimes the speed of execution of strategy. Bigger brands usually are fantastic at foundations, so they've got really solid knowledge on revenue management, and the training is very comprehensive. But sometimes when it comes to change management, independent hotels have a better opportunity of getting things across quicker because there's fewer hoops to jump through.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And over to Geza, I understand that you previously have worked at Accor and now managing this portfolio of hotels across the UK, both city and regional. So what do you see as the key differences?
I think definitely just kind of joined what Ina already mentioned, that the speed is absolutely different. So and I think especially with right now the changing market conditions, you got to be quick. If you make a quick decision, creating some promotion or applying some change in strategy, you don't have to wait an approval from a head office. You don't have to think about it that, is it brand compliant? Is it something which I can do or I can't? So that's really important. Also, I think it's important. We are a small boutique brand, which actually we can be more flexible and more kind of bespoke in a way. We kind of execute the strategy and creating the strategy behind them.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have a really interesting perspective, because whilst you're an independent brand, you work regionally, you've got properties across the country. So what do you see are some of the differences that you're experiencing in regards to revenue and revenue generation and managing pricing across the regions?
I think I don't want to exaggerate it. So basically we have Southwest, a couple of hotels in Cornwall and Devon and Dorset, and then we have city location. I wish to have like all over the country, but probably our Nordest hotel is Bristol. So I think this, but definitely the difference obviously between leisure and business hotels, and so while city location has a certain need, a certain kind of reaction time, dynamism, leisure is different. So obviously the strategy should be different on that.
So you really have to be thinking that, okay, you need to train your teams to be responsive for two really completely different markets, regardless of the fact that they're in the same country.
Yeah, and also it's interesting because if you go back a couple of years, that everybody said, it's London is really dynamic, and then now you don't really know if you don't have any hotels in London. And obviously came pandemic, and then we had the massive staycation. And I can tell you that probably Pesto was more dynamic in 21, 22 than any London hotels in city. So that's interesting. But I think now we're getting back to the normal times when it was before COVID. But yeah, well, definitely we really need to be quick on those periods when there was a massive demand.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like you really had to be on your toes there. And working at an independent property in London, I mean, things have been going crazy in the capital. How has your demand performed over the last year?
Yeah, as you said, there's been a lot of movement. I mean, last year, it's fair to say London has seen absolutely record rates in summer because of the pent-up demand that we kept talking about that finally came through. And this year, I can say that, of course, we were a bit apprehensive about the repeat of the success of last summer because, again, the rates that we were seeing in the market were incredibly aggressive. But I'm happy to say that the summer seems to be very, very busy as well. There's a lot of demand. There's a lot of events happening. And some of the markets like US are very willing to travel and spend more on the experiences and all those bespoke packages. And so yeah, we're seeing good demand in the market, good rates out there. But I guess the challenge always is that we have good, strong summers and, of course, capitalizing on that for the rest of the year as well.
I mean, you talk about aggressive markets. I guess, again, that keeps you on your toes. You need to be constantly thinking, looking at the data and reacting in real time.
Absolutely. And this is where, technology is really what sets you apart when it comes to reactivity, when it comes to pricing and being able to react quickly to any changes in the market, any news. I mean, sometimes things that you don't even suspect might trigger a change in the pricing. So just keeping an eye on a kind of more a global socioeconomic environment. And this is, again, where platforms like Ideas, for example, are very valuable because one single person, which a lot of the time for an independent property, there's one revenue person. If even that, sometimes it's a role that is combined with reservations. So you have a reservations and revenue manager, for example. That one person just cannot physically keep an eye on all the changes in the market. I mean, we're talking about current, modern revenue management systems change pricing many times a day. We're not even talking about, changes every day. It's many times a day that it happens. So this is where having, a very adequate tech stack, especially, is particularly important for independent hotels and smaller groups.
Thank you very much. Now, Michael, both of them have alluded to some really key elements of a successful revenue strategy and some of the challenges that are in there. Why do independent hotels need to rethink revenue management and strategy models today?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think they need to rethink their strategies. I think for me, and alluded to this, I think a lot of where the rethinking needs to happen is in the adoption of technology. I think technology, and in particular what I'll call intelligent automation, is leveling the playing field for independent hotels. In the past, the technology available to some of the brands was inaccessible to the independent sector, but that's changing. And the advances that we're seeing in AI and machine learning is eliminating many of the repetitive and tactical tasks for hotels. Which means that hotels are now able to function with leaner commercial teams. So that's a real advantage for an independent operator that doesn't have the capacity or the financial resources to invest in comprehensive commercial teams. So that is a distinct benefit for independent hotels. And I think we've seen that throughout the pandemic, and now through the recovery, that the adoption of technology in that sector is unprecedented. And this adoption consequently means that the teams are able to think more strategically and compete more effectively with the branded hotels.
I mean, yeah, we saw in the survey that those of an RMS achieved a 14.15% ADR increase last year compared to 11.69%. And we have seen, obviously, throughout the industry news that, rates have been at a record high for so many hoteliers. But this must impact guest perception of value. Geza, how do you manage that effectively, that you actually got prices and rates out there that aren't going to affect the brand?
I think it's really important. Yeah, obviously the operational side is the delivery, and we had a lot of think and discussion about it. So how we can actually make a small thing which actually turn into, it doesn't necessarily cost us much of a money, but it's a value for the guest that just to meet the expectation. It's really key. And obviously, needless to say that the whole industry is struggling with staff. So. And with less staff, more challenging stuff, you need to deliver exceptional high service levels. So that's a constant daily battle at the hotel level.
Thank you. And in a luxury like Lanesborough, obviously prices and rates can go through quite a bit of fluctuation dependent on demand and the time of year. So how do you, again, sort of like manage that expectation, especially for returning guests?
That's a great question. And I always say this in luxury, our guests are not price sensitive, they're value sensitive. And so it is a matter of making sure that no matter how much you're charging, that they don't feel the dip in the value they're receiving. And even in summer months where, traditionally luxury hotels in London have been charging really premium rates, these guests that are coming back and they'll stay other months as well, that they are feeling that they are getting their value worth, they're getting their money's worth, even if they might be paying, more premium rates in summer months, for example. And of course, guest recognition is absolutely number one. And this is, the ongoing training with the team on guest recognition, using of guest names, but also personalization of the stay. Sometimes amenities that you can put in the room that are personalized to this guest can go such a long way for that guest to feel recognized and to feel that they're coming back home.
But one of the other things that we're seeing in the industry is shorter lead times. How do shorter lead times affect the approach to pricing?
So looking at shorter lead times, you are right to mention that I think post-pandemic in general, hotels have seen shorter lead times with some of the markets particularly. Some markets traditionally had shorter lead times, like some of the Middle Eastern guests, for example, do prefer to book very last minute. But some markets like US tend to have longer lead time. But we have seen a bit of a combination of everything happening. I think it's really important to first of all make sure that your longer lead time offers are out there. So making sure that you are competitive and attractive for those travelers that do book with a longer lead time. Combination of longer lead time and shorter lead time is really what's important to drive in the hotel, because then you want to have base business by the time that you come to a shorter lead time and you can start increasing those prices. Pricing wise, yes, of course, it does affect the way that you manage pricing. But again, shorter lead time usually means that you managed to pick up some pretty good rates.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, because looking at regional hotels and how you manage that, because I know that it's not just affected the city hotels, and how do you achieve the occupancy you need to meet that profitability with such short lead times?
Yeah, it's definitely, I just 100% agree with Dina that the key is for maximizing the short lead is on the longer lead. So make sure you're building your base business, which makes you more comfortable and not getting nerve-wracking on the last minute. However, in a leisure destination, there's always a big impact of the competitors, because not everybody is thinking like this. And when they start to panicking, which is impacting your pricing, unfortunately. So either being the big-headed guy in the market that are still keeping my rates up, and then you got half hotel empty, or you just try to follow, but then obviously the whole revenue generation is a bit out of date. Also, it's important in the leisure destination that the weather element. So it is challenging, because you're expecting a short lead. I mean that if Monday, Tuesday is sunny, that we're expecting a lot of bookings coming over the weekend. If it's not happening, then you start to panicking, and then you need to make some actions which you shouldn't, and you don't want to do.
Thank you. Now, Michael, I mean, as Caterer just mentioned, the weather really is affecting people's decisions to travel and make those bookings. And that sort of data, I mean, the more data you have to see the market behaviors and some of the things that can have an impact on rates or bookings, I guess is really important. What is the role of technology in that pricing strategy, and how can independent hotels take advantage of opportunities?
Yes, data is the oxygen that fuels the revenue management system. Without good quality, clean data, the algorithms can't perform. That intelligent automation that I spoke about earlier can't perform optimally. So the best revenue management systems will incorporate not only historical data, but forward and future looking data and current data, and really get a good, clear picture of the market demand and respond in real time to those changes in demand. If you are able to forecast and anticipate and understand what that demand looks like in short term, and recalculate your forecast in response to that demand, you will ultimately provide the best prices to the guests, to convert the maximum number of guests at the right price.
Thank you. And now, Geza, I mean, we've already heard, the value that an RMS can bring. I think some of the worries has been in the industry that it's replacing the role of the revenue manager. What do you say to that? And, how should hotels be considering the utilization of an RMS and how they identify the positions they need in their team?
I think, to be fair, at Harbour Hotels, we are just the beginning of the road because we are in the implementation of ideas. So, but definitely what I can see is the role is changing. It's not being replaced, but you have like an additional assistant, if you like, and then you need to have a collaboration with an assistant. The assistant is helping you, which is obviously, it's impossible to do in a day, to looking at 365 days in the future, looking at the room type, looking at everything by segment and making decision, which is like thousands of decisions in a day, and it's just for one hotel. So you need to have this assistant hands on hands. You need to have a discussion with the assistant, teach them, and then learn from them, and that's how the role, because like, I don't know if it's traditional anymore. The revenue management, obviously, you do pricing, you do inventory control, but it's all your own, and then you don't really have all this complexity. So I kind of make the use of it.
Thank you. Now, Michael, you are seeing across your customers quite a number of cultural changes in how they're approaching revenue strategies. Where are they specifically lagging in really being able to keep up with the market changes?
Almost to echo what Geza was saying, I think one of the big changes that we're seeing, particularly with the independent sector, is the recognition that intelligent automation can really help change the performance of the operation. It's helping them increase processing speeds, it's helping them reduce costs, and it's helping them when optimizing decisions. And this in turn is allowing the hospitality professionals to rely on their human capabilities. Technology doesn't replace, it replaces the redundant and the mundane and the sort of detailed data processing. What it can't do is replace the human aspects of our business. Technology is freeing up hoteliers to actually be more creative, to be more innovative, and to deliver strategic outcomes, focus on the strategic rather than the tactical. So hopefully, and Geza agree with me, but I think that the fundamental role of technology is to actually free up humans from doing repetitive and mundane tasks and allowing them to actually be hoteliers.
100%, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And then, as you say, we've looked at sort of like revenue really just being about rooms, but things have massively changed, especially with COVID. Really recognize the importance of other business units to bring profitability at a time when you couldn't have rooms open, for example. And there's a lot of talk around total revenue management strategy. So going to Inna, what are the challenges of actually implementing a total revenue management strategy in a hotel?
Yes, you're right to say we have been talking about total revenue management actually for a while now. And I still don't think that any hotels out there, any groups or independent hotels out there are really out, pushing and at the forefront and having implemented total revenue management fully to its full potential. And I think that there's several reasons why we're not there yet. One of them being, of course, the tools. The tools, a lot of effort and a lot of emphasis has been on developing tools for room revenue management. And some technology is starting to emerge now. And I know Ideas has some solutions there for other outlets, but it's still, in my opinion, technology out there is still in its infancy when it comes to total revenue management. I also do think that, we have a challenge of having heads of departments that are very operational, that have always been thinking with that operational brain, and now, having to kind of pull back from that a little bit and saying to them, actually, there's a lot of value in data and a lot of value in spending your time, maybe taking away a bit of your time from being on the floor to back office and analysing and looking at numbers. It's also been a challenge, and I think it is a matter of at least starting that conversation for those hotels that are not actively pursuing total revenue management. Start by just inviting those HRDs to your strategy meetings, because already then they will be impressed. That's the kind of experience that I had so far in my career, is that when you actually sit people down and show them the data and show them what is possible, they want to be involved, they want to implement that into their working. So I think that's really it's the education piece for operational, but people that have been really operational, that are managing those departments. It's the tools that are still, we're not actively implementing those tools as an industry just yet, as we are with the revenue management system. I mean, your statistics, if half of the hotels are not using revenue management system for rooms, that answers your question why we're not there with total revenue management. I mean, even rooms revenue management still has a long way to go for a lot of hotels. Even just starting having conversation with your catering manager, looking at your events, having a heat calendar for events team of, where you have high seasons, low seasons. It's kind of just stripping it back to basics, but implementing those basics absolutely now is the right time. The first step is just having those conversations. Unfortunately, my opinion is we're not there yet. But I think, people like myself and Giza, if we start the process and implement already something, and that will, have a domino effect.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a mountain to move there when it comes to total revenue management. But guys, I mean, the key thing first is actually getting the technology and getting the backing of owners and general managers. And this can be the biggest hurdle if especially half of hoteliers are not using an RMS just yet. What advice do you give to people in your situation who are looking to get the backing of owners and GM?
That is an additional assistant, and then make your revenue team, make your operational team more effective. And it's just a small example. So what we're looking at our rates for maybe the next 3 months or so, but the system is constantly 4 times a day looking at your next 365 days. How much money you're actually leaving on the table, just not being able to utilize, because just you're being a simple human and not being utilized, that's so much outlook. And I think probably for me the effectiveness is the important point of having a system.
Excellent. Michael, I mean, what advice do you give to hoteliers once they've invested in a revenue management system to get the most out of it? I mean, it's not just about the technology, as Giza's mentioned as well.
Inna's touched on this already, actually. I think a key component in getting or deriving the maximum benefit from tools is to ensure that you adopt an integrated approach within your teams. What tended to happen is that different pieces of technology were developed to support different verticals within the hotel operations. And that meant those applications invariably didn't talk to each other. Now that those applications are starting to share data and talk to each other, is providing better results, better performance from those tools. But the same applies for the human aspect as well. If you want to get the most out of the tools, you need to take an holistic commercial approach to your operation, not just look at rooms or sales or marketing or F&B separately, but look at it from a holistic perspective. There is work still to be done. I think part of the challenge that why this hasn't happened as quickly as it possibly we would have all liked is because the integrations in the back end haven't happened. So it's a combination. In order for us to reach that sort of total revenue management nirvana, requires the technical ecosystem to support the operational ecosystem. And when we can combine those and achieve that, I think we'll see a big step forward in the adoption of technology, not just for rooms, but for all aspects of the operation.
Wonderful. Michael, thank you ever so much for joining us today and sharing those insights from the Ideas and Caterer survey. Ina and Geza, thank you ever so much for sharing your experiences and perspectives on how independent and regional hotels could be addressing their revenue management strategies.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music Sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.